Hi Barksdale, my name is Maria Even and I am the Violence Prevention Integrator for the installation. In past years we've done our training face-to-face. This year we're doing it via video. This video is the violence prevention training for 2020. It will fulfill the requirement for sexual assault prevention and response annual training and suicide prevention annual training. We hope that you find the information that is shared by our volunteers on the video engaging, and we'll use the discussion points for further conversation in your units. If you have any questions about anything that is in the video, any of the services, or any questions about anything that we talk about, you can call me, Maria Even. I am the Violence Prevention Integrator, or the VPI, for Barksdale Air Force Base at 456-2647, or you can also contact the SAPR office at Barksdale as well.
Hi, my name is Josh Parsons, and I'm with Global Strike Weapon Safety. I also used to work the reserves, but I've been doing Green Dot in some capacity and now interpersonal violence and suicide prevention for the last 4+ years. The reason that this program is really important to me really originates back to when I first got here to Barksdale. And when we first showed up to Barksdale, my son was just 4 years old, awesome little boy, but obviously he wanted friends, so we found some friends in the local area. And one of his best friends, Braden, the two of them would hang out and play all the time. Unfortunately, Braden's family, the dad was a former Marine, really huge linebacker-sized guy, and he basically had worked as a Marine, but then had gotten a job in the area here with SMSgt, one of the oil companies. When the oil dried up in this area, they ended up moving to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Not long after that, I started getting messages from the dad saying, "Hey, have you heard from my wife? You know what's going on?" Apparently they had gotten divorced, and he was trying to get in contact with his wife, and I didn't know anything. So it was very easy for me. It was a barrier, if you will, for me to simply say, "You know what, I don't know anything. Sorry, bye," and leave it at that. This happened multiple times, not just once, but 2-3 times in a row. And at some point there, I started feeling like something weird is going on. Maybe I should think about this and address it. However, the calls kept coming, and every time I said, "No, I don't know," and just blew it off. It wasn't a big deal to me. It wasn't something that affected me. It was easy for me to just pass the buck and say, "Not my problem." Then come to find out from my ex, she said, "Hey, you need to go on the internet and find out what's going on." He was on the news. He had found out where his ex was. He had gone to her house and kicked the door into the apartment. And he actually had a restraining order against him, wasn't even supposed to know where she was, which is why he'd been hunting for her. But he kicked the door down, went into the house, grabbed his son, and she ran out in a panic and called the cops. Not long after that, the cops arrived and had a multi-hour standoff, which is where I found out and was watching this actually occur on the internet. And before it ended, he choked and killed his son. That's not something that anybody wants to hear, but that's what happened. Before the cops could intervene, he killed his son. And I'm not saying that I was able to stop that from happening. I wasn't in the same city. I didn't have any direct access to this situation. But I also can say that I didn't do everything I could have. I walked by a problem. The whole idea behind interpersonal violence prevention is to pay attention to those sorts of situations, to see where those problems are, and to learn about the methods to not walk by the problems. And I've learned about, through this training, about all the alternative methods that we have through being direct, delegating things to other people, distracting in some way, but all of the methods that we use to identify and try to fix these problems. And I have an opportunity now to pass that to you guys. And so that's what this story is really about, is making sure that everybody understands that you don't have to just walk by the problem, that there are methods to addressing it. Some of them are very challenging, some of them are super easy, and you just don't want to pass by that and end up in a situation where you can't fix it.
I'm Senior Master Sergeant Dietrich, President of the Barksdale First Sergeant Council. When I think about violence prevention as a First Sergeant, I think about the peers, friends, and first line supervisors that are out there that work with our airmen every single day. The time an issue gets to me as the First Sergeant, sometimes that issue is already matured to the point where we're in a reactive situation and not necessarily proactive. In a lot of those instances, in my experience in almost 4 years as a First Sergeant, When we go back and start looking into that member's life, the peers, the friends, and the first line supervisors sometimes had some inkling of an idea that there was something going on in that airman's life. Maybe they were having trouble at home with their marriage. Maybe they were drinking too much. Maybe they were making comments in the work center that were a little off, but nobody wanted to say anything. I think our airmen need to have the courage to stand up and just bring those comments and those questions up to their chain of command so we get an opportunity to help those airmen earlier than later.
Greetings, my name is Adriane Banks, and I am Barksdale's Domestic Abuse Victim Advocate. The acronym for my position is DAVA. Intimate partner violence is also known as domestic violence. You say, well, what is domestic violence? Domestic violence is a pattern of behaviors used by one partner to gain and maintain power and control over another partner in an intimate relationship. Abuse is not part of a healthy relationship. There is an intersection between domestic violence and sexual assault. The link between sexual violence and domestic violence is undeniable. So we must create a culture where victims, male and female, feel comfortable, they feel safe reporting that they are victims of intimate partner violence.
Hi, I'm Technical Sergeant Burns Davis. I work in the medical group as the executive officer, and I'm bioenvironmental engineering by trade. Today I want to talk to you about an incident that I witnessed and intervened in. When I was younger, my best friend took me over to her house to collect some items. She seemed kind of anxious, which is a warning sign that I didn't immediately pick up on. She went inside of the house and came out, and then her boyfriend at the time came out after her and slammed her on the trunk of my car. While it was happening, I ducked down in my car and called the police. Thankfully, my friend was able to get out of that situation, but I wish I would have paid attention to the warning signs that led up to that event. I think it's important that we realize that there are barriers for intervening in situations. Those barriers could be personal, where you don't want to get hurt, which as you heard about in my situation, I could very well have gotten hurt. Knowing the warning signs before things happen and finding those organizations to help are all great ways to prevent and also overcome situations that might arise in your life.
My name is Eureka Chitman. I am the NAV training manager for the 2nd FS Squadron. When I was 15 years old, I was stopped and harassed by a young man by phone calls, pop-up visits, by the school, and I was very terrified. So one day I had decided I'd walk to the store, and a block away from my home he came out of nowhere on the bike. And he had a big knife, and he said that he was going to stab me and he was going to kill me. And so he started poking me, he started scratching me with the knife, and I was very scared, I was terrified, and I had to think quick of not to try to upset him. So I proceeded to continue to walk. 4 blocks down, I was able to agree that I would let him take me to the store on the bike. So when I proceeded to try to get on the back of the bike, I pushed him down in the bike, and I took off running and screaming. And an airman and his wife was coming out of the house that they just PCS in and moved into the neighborhood, saw me running and screaming and crying, and they helped me and they saved my life.
Hello, I'm Major India Bird Fulbright, Special Victims Counsel, assigned here at Barksdale Air Force Base, and the other half of my team is Staff Sergeant Katie Cooper, Special Victims Paralegal. We represent victims of sexual assaults, which include a myriad of sexually related offenses, stalking, and on a case-by-case exception, we can also represent victims of domestic violence. Another reason that victims seek our services is because we can guide them through the entire military justice process. Whether it's from the very beginning, they haven't even made a restricted or unrestricted report. We can walk them through that so they can make a decision. And if they have made a report, we can help them through the interview process. And that's one of the common positive feedbacks that we receive, is being able to help a victim interview. Many people have misconceptions about interviewing with law enforcement, whether that comes from Law and Order or other TV dramas. And so we prepare victims by explaining to them what the interview will be like, what kind of details they'll have to provide, what kind of questions will be asked, and we can attend interviews with our clients. So our job is to make sure that our clients understand what's going on, what is happening next, and that they're making decisions along the way that best suit their needs.
Hi, I'm Sergeant Stewart from the Equal Opportunity Office. I'm here to talk to you about sexual harassment. So when we talk about sexual harassment, there's three things that typically constitute sexual harassment. So it's a behavior or action that's unwanted or unwelcome. It's sexual in nature, and then it creates what we call an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment. Now when we see sexual harassment, it's not usually a one-time occurrence. There typically is a pattern of behavior or a trend of behavior. So a subtle comment today can turn into a less subtle comment tomorrow, an inappropriate comment, sexual in nature, sexual jokes, fantasies, talking about fantasies, things like that. Those things can lead to physical contact, a touch on the shoulder, rubbing somebody's arm, a pat on the back. Those things can continue to become more severe or pervasive.
Surviving a sexual assault can be very traumatizing, and it can require a great deal of strength, courage, and healing. Over the years, as I have worked with sexual assault and also domestic violence victims, I have seen firsthand the impact that a great victim advocate can have on a victim. I had a victim come into my office that had experienced a rape, and she did not want to report to her chain of command out of the fear of being ostracized, being retaliated against, or even being reprimanded. And so because of all those factors, she defaulted to filing a restricted report. After working with this victim for a few weeks and serving as her support channel, referring her to mental health services and other SAPA resources that we provide in our office, she came back into our office and decided to change her restricted report to an unrestricted report. Now, I know that that was a reflection of the great advocacy that our office provided to this victim. Advocacy provides a level of empowerment to victims because it empowers them to know that it's okay to use your voice. It reassures them that there's someone in their corner. And advocacy could look different from one victim to the next because, not all victims use the same resources. Not all victims' cases are the same. But there's one aspect of advocacy that remains the same, and that's trust. Trust that they have someone in their corner. They have someone that is a listening ear, whether it's in the middle of the night and they are in an emotional state or they're triggered by something, that we will pick up our phone and call them. And that is what the SAPRA office wants to provide to most victims, or all victims, is great victim advocacy.
When we look at barriers to intervening or getting help, oftentimes they're either personal, social, or organizational. When it comes to reporting a sexual assault, a lot of the times airmen fear that they won't be believed or that they will be retaliated against within their unit, or they're just uncertain on where to go or where to seek help. And we understand that reporting a sexual assault and making steps towards recovery and healing can be somewhat of a scary process, but what we've seen on Barksdale is leadership from the top down, being very supportive of victims, very supportive of the program, and just ensuring that victims receive all the services and all the resources they need to get them through the healing process. And ultimately, that's the direction we want to move in, is creating that environment where airmen feel comfortable and confident to seek help and assure them that they're going to be supported throughout the entire process as well.
So I'm Chief Master Sergeant Jacob Larson from the 2nd Maintenance Group, and this is my story about an aircraft mechanic who thought suicide was his only option and how a few simple questions saved his life. In this particular case, the maintainer made a mistake, and he filled out the worksheet and pushed it up, and had gone through the 2 layers of review, and it was at me for my review. And it was all good until I got to the very end where he said, "Sorry, I messed up. The world would be a better place without me." I decided, maybe I'd just call the section chief and just see if there's anything else going on. And I reach him, and he says, he says he's kind of a negative character. He's like that all the time, but he doesn't really mean anything by it. So for me, that was red flag number 2. Then I looked up his supervisor on the recall roster, and I gave him a call too. This time I got, he's a little stressed out because his enlistment is almost up, he's got a lot of debt, and he feels trapped to support his family. That was it for me, so I call him, and thankfully he picks up, and I tell him that he needs to come in. I don't tell him why. While they're doing that, I give a call to the first sergeant and the commander, and I tell him that there's just too many alarm bells going off, and I want to just bring him in and ask him some questions in person. So they come in as well, and we all meet up in the shirts office, and when I started to kind of give him all the pieces of this puzzle, the member breaks down, and we all decide that he needs emergency care. The point here is that if you detect one piece, one red flag, you owe it to your airman to ask a few other people that know him just to see if there's any other red flags or pieces to the puzzle. You never know when you're going to save a life.
Hello, I'm A1C Mata. I work at the mental health clinic.
I'm A1C Vanover, and I also work at the mental health clinic.
So today we're going to be talking a little bit about suicide prevention and the ACE concept. I think it's important to have that conversation and pull them to the side, and not just, a simple, "Oh, are you okay?" or just pulling them to the side and really asking, "Hey, I noticed that your mood has changed in the last couple of weeks, or you haven't seemed like yourself. What's going on?"
Changes in mood is obviously a good form of distress. If they're normally happy and they're not really feeling as happy anymore, any changes in sleep behaviors, if they're giving stuff away, like, "Hey, this is something very important to me, I want you to have it," that's also a very big indicator of someone being in distress. Just in general, if you just notice anything changing or they're not being their normal self, then that's definitely a good time to be concerned and ask.
And asking the question up front could be a little bit intimidating on your side. However, it could be a little bit comforting on their side if they have had thoughts of wanting to harm themselves. So asking the question, "Hey, have you had thoughts of wanting to harm yourself?" or "Have you had thoughts of wanting to kill yourself?" And I think the most important thing here is to actually be prepared for them to say yes.
So obviously if they say yes, you want to make sure that they're safe with themselves and where they are right now. You want to make sure they can go and get those resources. They know what resources to do, and that they know you also care. That's the next part of the ACE concept, is that you care. You show active listening. You say, "Hey, I'm here for you. Thank you for being honest with me. That way we can get you some help." You always want to make sure that they know they have the support and that they have those resources available to them, such as yourself, or and of course professional help as well. If they are having thoughts about wanting to harm or kill themselves, you want to make sure they also don't have the access to the means. You want to make sure they don't have access to a weapon at the home, and then work with them getting a plan to making sure that that weapon is taken care of and is not in their possession, or they can't utilize that for their thoughts.
It's a very common misconception that if you ask the question directly, you're going to be putting that thought inside the member's head, or the idea in the member's head, which is not true at all. It's actually shown in research that 75% of members that are experiencing suicidal ideations do disclose when they are asked. Sometimes they could be carrying this for so long and not be able to have the either the access to resources, or just someone hasn't asked them the question yet to give them that opportunity to share what's been on their mind or share what they've been experiencing.
You have to think it from their perspective too. This is something that they don't know what to do. They're scared. They want help, but they don't know how to ask for it. So by asking them, you give them the outlet to say, "Yeah, I need help. Can you help me with that?" It definitely helps them in a profound way to be able to seek that professional help, or at least get started on that pathway.
If someone is experiencing suicidal ideations and they fully disclose that, they do have the resource of walking into the mental health clinic in the clinic hours, which is 7:30 to 4:30, or they do have the option of walking into emergency care.
What Mata had mentioned earlier, finding the different resources and offering those, saying, hey, we can go to mental health, we can go to an ER, we can talk to your first sergeant or your chaplain, whatever you feel comfortable with.
My name is Senior Erin Manning. I work at the 26 OWS. My suicide prevention story actually begins back when I was in high school. So one year, 2015 to be exact, I was getting ready to graduate, and one of our classmates had came to school one day, very normal. The next day he didn't show up for class. When this happened, a lot of things kind of gave us a sense that he would harm himself. He started saying goodbyes. He started saying that things would be better off without him, that things would be, his parents would be happier if he wasn't alive, things like that. And we all told him, you know, it's not true. That's not something that would benefit anybody. It would actually hurt us. But in his mind, that wasn't true. So one day at about 3 a.m., he sent a message saying, you know, remember me as I was. And the next morning, whenever we woke up to those messages, everyone was in a panic. We went to the police. A friend of ours had parents in the police department. We called them. They went out and did a check, and they found that he had indeed chosen to end his life. Ever since then, I started teaching this class. I've taken online courses to become professionally certified to run the National Suicide Hotline, and I've had multiple experiences with people who've come to me and said, hey, I need help, and I've learned how to help them. Any life that is saved is something that you cherish so much. So that is another reason why I continue to teach these classes today, because learning the steps that you can take to help someone when it does happen to you is something that's invaluable in my opinion.
Hello, my name is Senior Airman Chadwick. I'm with the 2nd Aircraft Maintenance Group. My close-knitted friends from work, we just kept going. Everyday life, mudding, doing crazy stuff, until one day all of our worlds crashed when one of our own decided to take his own life without even showing any signs or talking about it, and that really hit it home for me. I didn't notice the warning signs. I didn't notice the things that I should have been looking out for, the questions I should have been asking, and it really, looking back at it now, that's why I came back and continued to teach, because I don't want another airman to feel like there's nowhere to turn, there's nowhere to go. This training really opened up my eyes to a lot of things. Like, you are not alone. I know that a lot of people say, hey, here's the places you can go and people you can see, but we need to turn to each other. We need to pay attention to each other. That's what I got from it. So now I'm asking more questions. I'm being more forthcoming to the new kids, like, hey, do you need something? Do you need this? Do you need that? And it's a good program, and you can take a lot out of it.
It's important to share, because when you share, hey, I think my sense of sacred worth, my sense of life value comes from here, it can get someone else in dialogue, maybe for the first time in their life, to explore that within themselves. And who knows, that could actually make a difference between them deciding that their life doesn't have any value and their life has substance and value and is worth preserving. And so therefore, ergo, and it follows, maybe they would never even contemplate the option to end their life because they discovered somewhere along the way through one of these dialogues with you that their life has a lot going on for it and is worth preserving, not getting rid of.